Now let's turn to our final task of this lesson, which is to demonstrate just how powerful the price elasticity concept can be in both business and government applications. And let me start out by asking you this question. If you raise the price of a product, will the total revenues from selling that product go up or down? At an intuitive level, this might seem like a really dumb question. Why? Because most people's intuition tell them that, of course, total revenues will go up with a price increase. But this is one of those rare cases in economics where intuition can be dead wrong, as the case of Stuart Applegate in our introductory lecture indicated. To see why, let's first look at how a firm's total revenues are calculated. Here's the formula. Total revenues simply equal the price times the quantity. Now, knowing what you do about price elasticity, you might already be able to answer a question like this. Suppose your business sells tapes, and I tell you that demand for your product is relatively price elastic. Looking at this formula, what would you do to raise your total revenues? Raise or lower your price? That's right, you'd lower your price. This is because in the total revenue formula, P will go down by less than Q will go up. So total revenues, or TR, must rise. This figure lists the 6 pricing and total revenue possibilities. See if you can fill in the 6 empty boxes. Did you get it? It should be readily apparent from this figure just how powerful this concept can be. Just remember the case of Stuart Applegate from the first lecture. He was the chief executive officer who tried to bail out his software company by raising prices. But demand was highly elastic, total revenues fell, and his company went out of business. And then there was Jennifer Twilley, a financial analyst in the operations department for the Transit Authority in Paradise, California. Facing a revenue shortfall, Jean ordered an analysis of the elasticity of demand for bus services. When she found that bus demand was also highly elastic, she recommended to her supervisor that the Transit Authority lower bus fares. This pricing strategy did indeed increase ridership and boost total revenues. It also earned Jean a nice promotion. It's not just pricing strategies that the concept of elasticity of demand can help with. It's also broader marketing strategies. For example, why do you think that many airlines offer fare discounts to people who stay over on a Saturday night? It's because airlines are trying to sort out 2 different kinds of customers. Business people with more inelastic demands who want to fly home on the weekends and perhaps be with their families, versus pleasure travelers who don't mind staying over on a Saturday night. By making this separation, the airlines can effectively charge 2 prices, a higher one to business travelers and a lower one to pleasure travelers. This means more total passengers and more total revenue. Okay, here's another one. Why don't most new cars sell at their sticker price? Put another way, why do you have to go in and haggle when you buy a car, whereas if you go in and buy a gallon of milk, you pay the sticker price? It's because our car salespersons are trained to sort out comparison shoppers with more elastic demands from impulse buyers who have inelastic demands. By not listing the selling price of cars, the salespersons can charge the impulse buyers more. Finally, the concept of price elasticities can also help us think through a wide variety of public policy problems. Take a look at this figure and the case of drug addiction. In the figure, we see once again that the demand curve for a highly addictive drug like crack is almost perfectly inelastic. We also see that the supply curve crosses the demand curve at point E, where the price is $10 a dose. Now, what happens in the figure when the U.S. government escalates its war on drugs by interdicting large quantities of illegal cocaine shipments from Colombia? That's right, the supply curve shifts inward. The practical effect is to significantly raise the price, but because demand is inelastic, this has little impact on reducing crack consumption. But there is a further problem. Because crack addicts have to now pay more for their fix, crime tends to increase because it is through robberies and burglaries and prostitution that most addicts pay for their dope. Given these observations, the logical thing to do, at least from an economic point of view, would seem to be to just legalize drugs. But beyond the obvious moral questions raised by that proposal, some economists have argued that while drug addicts are highly insensitive to price, the casual drug user is highly price sensitive. This suggests that even if the war on drugs has little effect on curbing consumption by drug addicts, it nonetheless may have a big effect on reducing consumption among casual users who presumably respond to price hikes by substituting cheaper drugs like alcohol for more expensive drugs like cocaine. Of course, the debate over the legalization of drugs remains unresolved, but at least with the help of microeconomics, policymakers can better think through the problem. A second policy issue involves agricultural price supports. The problem here is that demand for farm products is highly inelastic, perhaps only 0.20 or 0.25. This means that during a year of bumper crops, the quantity demanded will change only a little bit, but food prices will plummet. The paradoxical result is that many farmers go bankrupt when crops are plentiful. One way to address this problem is to restrict farm output, and this has been regularly done with many farm products, from milk and oranges to corn and wheat. Still, a third application involves the levying of so-called excise or sales taxes. If the government imposes a sales tax on a product that is highly elastic, what do you think will happen to total tax revenues? That's right, total revenues fall. So at least most legislatures are smart enough to seek out products with more inelastic demands to tax, products like alcohol and tobacco. You can see then from all of these applications just how important and useful the theory of consumer behavior and consumer choice can be. In the next lesson, we'll tackle the supply side of the supply and demand framework. In the meantime, please remember that economics is not something to memorize, but rather something to conceptualize. So as you study it, think about it too. Your job and your business just might depend on it.